In photography, there are cameras and lenses which you can use, which allow you to tilt or shift the area of focus so that you can have a slice of your image in focus. And we can do something similar in Photoshop using the tilt shift blur. This blur is part of the blur gallery, and so let's take a look at how we can use this filter as a smart filter. To do that, you want to target your layer and convert the layer to a smart object. One way to do that is to right-click or control-click the layer and choose Convert to Smart Object. Next, access the filter by going to the Filter pull-down menu. Here, select Blur, then choose Tilt Shift. Working with the Tilt Shift filter is a lot of fun. All right, well, you can see we have some controls over here on the right and some on-screen controls as well. Well, as we've seen before, we have the center area, which is protected. The area between these two solid circles and solid lines is a protected area. Now we can increase or decrease that by clicking and dragging this one way or another. And what I want to do is decrease the distance between the lines so that we can sort of focus in on what's happening. If I reposition this, you can see that the slice of the image that's in focus is this area here. We can increase the blur by dragging this slider here or by working with our slider in this area. You can also control the distortion that you have in the area where the image is blurred. Sometimes this can help you to dial in the shape of the blur so that the blur looks realistic and good. Next, we have the dotted line. Well, the dotted line is all about the transition. Notice that this area is protected. Well, then there's a transition from the solid line to the dotted line. Here we can click and drag that in order to have a larger transition area, or we can bring this in if we want a smaller area. We can also extend the overall blur by working with both lines. In this way, you can see that I can customize that out so that I now have more of my image in focus. Another thing that we can do with these controls is rotate the blur. By rotating the blur, we can align this up, say, with the hat, so that the slice of blur is just this area right here. Then I'll go ahead and click and drag these lines up just a little bit more so that the focus really is on the subject and her face. We'll bring this up just a bit. Also increase that blur. Then in order to apply this particular filter, again, all that you need to do is to click on the OK checkbox. Yet before you do, I always find it's a good idea to hide the overlay because that's a bit distracting. Press and hold the H key in order to hide the overlay. Then you can click on the preview checkbox and here you can see the before, and then click again and you can see the after. Let go of the H key and it will bring back those overlay elements. All right, well, after you have dialed in all of your settings and previewed the results of this tilt shift blur, the next step is to click OK. That will then render and apply those settings to your photograph. And here, back in our layers panel, we can see that we now have this smart filter applied to the photograph. And we have the blur down below. You can click on the eye icon to toggle the visibility of that blur on and off. If ever you decide to change the blur amount or the type of blur, just double-click the blur gallery. That will relaunch the blur gallery, and here we can customize this. I'm going to bring the blur down a bit. I feel like it was a little bit too heavy-handed, so I'm just going to customize this a little bit more here and dial this in so that I have a nice slice of focus, which is really drawing the viewer into this area of the image. All right, I think that looks a little better. And then again, click OK in order to apply those settings.